everybody, Maddie here. Welcome to another episode of Tech Insights for Visionaries. On our show, we discuss the latest technological innovations and trends and how they affect our businesses. Keeping up to date with the latest changes and disruptions in technology is an important practice for any entrepreneur or business owner. This podcast is produced by a team of software engineers from MobiDev, an international software engineering company focused on helping visionaries create their products. The company invests in technology research and has years of experience building AI-powered solutions, web and mobile platforms, implementing augmented reality, and IoT technologies. Feel free to reach MobiDev to create your next product.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean. For today's episode, we're going to talk a bit more about security in regards to IoT technologies.
Yes. We've talked about IoT devices on our show before. The Internet of Things is a big part of the digital transformation we've been seeing recently.
Definitely. One of the biggest concerns of IoT is managing the risks associated with a growing quantity of IoT devices. Information security and privacy issues are hot topics. As IoT vulnerabilities continue to emerge, it's critical for manufacturers to emphasize IoT security by design.
I've heard that IoT vulnerabilities have been exploited across various industries. I can imagine that's not only bad because of exposed, sensitive data, but it could also be very bad for personal safety.
I agree. Let's talk more specifically about what can pose threats to your business. The first of these are IoT botnets. These are hackers who compromise millions of devices, connecting them into a network that they can use for criminal activities. IoT devices are a great candidate for botnets due to their weak security and the large number of virtually identical devices. Attackers can use the same tactics to compromise large swaths of IoT devices. Unprotected ports and phishing scams are a few entry points for hackers to take control of IoT devices for enlistment into their botnet. Hackers have a variety of ready-to-use toolkits to attack these devices, making it easy for them to take over large numbers of devices in a short period of time. These toolkits are able to detect sensitive devices, penetrate them, and avoid detection. Another module in the toolkit then instructs the device to launch an attack or steal information on behalf of the botnet owner. Threat actors often leverage IoT botnets during distributed denial of service, DDoS attacks.
That sounds pretty unpleasant. What are some other ways that IoT devices can be misused by hackers?
Data exfiltration is when hackers use IoT devices to extract sensitive data from a network, such as sensitive personal information. Attackers also leverage IoT to harvest credentials from device firmware. Using these credentials, attackers can gain access to corporate networks or other systems storing sensitive data. In this way, an attack on a seemingly innocent device can turn into a full-scale data breach.
Yikes.
Another method that hackers use is shadow IoT. IT administrators don't always have control over devices connected to the network. Devices with IP addresses, such as digital assistants, smartwatches, or printers, frequently connect to corporate networks, and they don't always meet security standards. Without knowledge of shadow IoT devices, IT administrators can't ensure the hardware and software have basic security features. This can make it difficult to monitor malicious traffic on devices. When hackers compromise these devices, they can leverage the connection to the corporate network and escalate privileges to access sensitive information on the corporate network.
What are some notable IoT security breaches and hacks that are examples of these kinds of vulnerabilities?
In 2010, researchers discovered that a virus called Stuxnet caused physical damage to nuclear centrifuges in Iran. The attack began in 2006, with the primary stage of the campaign in 2009. The malware manipulated commands sent from programmable logic controllers, PLC. Stuxnet is often considered an IoT attack, amongst the earliest, targeting a supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA system, used in industrial environments. There's another example that I think is interesting. The very first known IoT botnet in 2013. Proofpoint researchers discovered that over 25% of this botnet was composed of non-computer devices, such as smart TVs, home appliances, and baby monitors. Since then, malware like Crash Override, VPN Filter, and Triton have been used extensively to compromise industrial IoT systems.
Do you remember that time people were able to hack into a Jeep?
Oh yes, that's another interesting example. In 2015, two security researchers hacked into a Jeep wirelessly via the Chrysler Uconnect system deployed in the car and performed remote actions like changing channels on the radio, turning on the wipers and air conditioner. The researchers said they could disable the brakes and cause the engine to stall, slow down, or shut down altogether.
That's really scary. Imagine driving along and suddenly a hacker disables your brakes.
You're totally right. The consequences of vulnerable IoT networks can be extremely serious. Another example of an IoT network hack is the Mirai botnet in 2016. This is one of the largest IoT botnets ever discovered. It began by attacking the websites of security researcher Brian Krebs and a European hosting company, OVH. The attacks were of a huge magnitude, 630 gigabytes per second and 1.1 terabytes per second.
Whoa, that's a lot of data.
Afterwards, the botnet was used to attack DIN, a large DNS provider, and high-profile websites including Twitter, Amazon, Netflix, and the New York Times. The attackers built their network from IoT devices like routers and IOP surveillance cameras. Yet another example, in 2017, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced that implantable cardiac devices manufactured by St. Jude Medical, including pacemakers implanted in living patients, were vulnerable to attack. Billy Rios and Jonathan Butts, security researchers presenting at the Black Hat Conference, proved their ability to hack into a pacemaker and shut it down, which, if it were done by hackers, would kill the patient.
Yikes, that's probably the scariest one of them all. Well, now that we know the consequences of all these vulnerabilities, what can we do to stop hackers from taking over IoT networks?
Yeah, it's definitely anxiety-inducing. But now that we know what the vulnerabilities are, we can begin to approach solutions. One of the most important best practices is to use IoT security analytics. A security analytics infrastructure can significantly reduce vulnerabilities and security issues related to the Internet of Things. This requires collecting, compiling, and analyzing data from multiple IoT sources, combining it with threat intelligence, and sending it to a Security Operations Center, SOC. When IoT data is combined with data from other security systems, security teams have a much better chance of identifying and responding to potential threats. Security analytics systems can correlate data sources and identify anomalies that might represent suspicious behavior. Security teams can then investigate and respond to anomalies, preventing attackers from compromising corporate IoT devices.
That makes sense. It's like watching security camera footage. If we're not watching for an attacker, we won't see them.
Precisely. Another best practice is network segmentation. This is a technique that enables isolation of specific components from others to improve security. For IoT, segmentation can help prevent attackers or malicious insiders from connecting to IoT devices. Segmentation can also prevent compromised devices from infecting other parts of the network. You can implement this technique into your strategies or use a network security solution. To begin a segmentation effort, create a comprehensive list of IoT devices currently in use, their connection methods, VLAN or LAN, how and what type of data they transmit, and which other devices on the network each device really needs to connect to. In particular, check if each category of device needs to have access to the internet, and if not, disable it. One suggestion for segmentation is to designate specific categories of devices, such as data collection, infrastructure, or personal employee-owned devices. You can create a segmentation strategy based on the connectivity requirements of each IoT endpoint and act to isolate or block network access to endpoints that don't really need it.
I thought of another method. Wouldn't device authentication solve a lot of these vulnerabilities?
Device authentication is definitely something we recommend. Whether your IoT devices have simple password authentication or more advanced measures like digital certificates, biometric, or multi-factor authentication, MFA. Use the most secure authentication available on the device and ensure you never use the factory default password.
We've talked a lot about artificial intelligence and machine learning on our show previously. How might we leverage these technologies to make IoT networks more secure?
I'm glad you brought this up because AI and ML technologies are increasingly being used for IoT network security. An expanding network of IoT devices produces tremendous amounts of data, which are useless without proper analysis. Massive sets of data are analyzed with the help of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, allowing machines to teach themselves retain what they learned, and hence improve the capabilities of IoT systems. AI-based intrusion detection systems continuously monitor the network, collecting and analyzing information from previous attacks. They can predict an attack based on the historical data and suggest a solution to fight the threat. Even if new hacking techniques are created, they still may include previously used patterns, which can be recognized with ML algorithms in real time.
How do intrusion detection systems work?
There are two kinds: anomaly IDS and misuse or signature IDS. Anomaly IDS detects attacks based on recorded normal behavior, comparing the current real-time traffics with previously recorded normal real-time traffics. These systems are capable of detecting a new type of attack, so widely used even in spite of a large amount of false positive alarms. Misuse or signature IDS compares the similarity between the patterns recognized in the current real-time traffics and the already known patterns of various types of previous attacks. It shows a smaller amount of false positive alarms, but at the same time, the new type of attack can pass through undetected. There are also some machine learning algorithms that we can use to detect and classify attacks, such as linear discriminant analysis, classification, and regression trees, as well as random forest.
Well, knowing all the ways that we can protect our IoT networks makes me feel better again. Maybe I won't have to be scared of my car being hacked into on my way to work in the morning.
Yes, while IoT security vulnerabilities can become catastrophic, we have learned a lot about how to protect them. Hackers are going to continue to evolve, and so will we. Protecting IoT networks and building devices with security in mind is extremely important as we press on into the future.
The good news is that software developers and IoT experts in the industry are more security-oriented than ever before. Here at MobiDev, we are experienced in building software for IoT networks. We're prepared to help your business with needs like IoT software architecture, firmware integration, smart connectivity, UI/UX design, cloud services, edge computing, and more. When you're ready to help your business take a competitive leap, reach out to us at contact@mobidev.biz.
That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you liked this episode and found it helpful, please share it with a friend or a colleague.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.